Don't mind the murky grayish skies. I don't know if you guys can tell from the camera, but there's fires all around our mountains right now, which are about 3-4 miles away in all directions. South California, I'm sure you heard about these fires. They continue, but man, we got to keep recording and keep doing our unprofessional analysis and breakdowns of these matchups. October 19, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. We have a huge pay-per-view PFL event, Battle of the Giants. We have Francis Ngannou finally coming back against Renan Ferreira. And also in the co-main event, we have the return of Cris Cyborg versus Larissa Pacheco. Starting us off in this incredible pay-per-view card is a lightweight bout between Mackey versus Paul Hughes. An interesting matchup between two young men with great talent. The only difference is that despite similar age and being young, Mackey has so much more experience than Paul Hughes. Mackey being a former lightweight champion at Bellator, defeating Pacheco Pitbull, and current decent wins even after losing his belt to Pitbull in the rematch. He has a very explosive, fast submission win over Clay Collard, which tells me that that guy's still sharp. He's still dangerous and he's still as hungry as ever. While Paul Hughes, pretty much still new to the big times, he's looking sharp, man. He's looking very dangerous. And I love a lot of what I saw in his last fight against Bobby King. To start off with Paul Hughes, in his fight with Bobby King, I mean, that guy just looked like an incredible striker on the inside. He likes to get in there and strike at close range, pretty much like at clinch range, but he's sharp and powerful in there and pretty much tore up Bobby King. And again, he's looking very clean and sharp inside. Although he did get tagged a couple times by Bobby King, I don't think that's going to be the same problem or issue against Mackey, since AJ is a different type of striker. I don't think Paul Hughes has too much to worry about in the exchanges. And with some heavy leg kicks that staggered Bobby King several times throughout their fight, he has a lot of tools to keep Mackey thinking. AJ's keys here for victory is definitely going to be to mix it up. Get in there, maybe throw 1-2 fakes, but definitely you want to take this guy down. I feel this is where Mackey flourishes, where he's at his best, when he takes you down and starts working you. I mean, look at his last fight against Clay Collard, who's no joke himself. He was able to take it down and slap the submission and tap them out quick. The only thing that worries me is that in his second fight against Pitbull, he did gas out. And he did start getting sloppy with his stand-up, reaching, getting sloppy with his takedowns. Mackey's cardio needs to be on point for this one. It's definitely going to be an exciting lightweight match. And I still see Mackey pulling it off. His experience, the fact that he's pretty decent everywhere, he's going to be able to drag this fight out into a unanimous decision victory. For our second bout of the main card, we have a featherweight fight, and this is going to be between Husein, can't pronounce the name, Kadimagomaev versus Zafar Mohsen. If I'm correct, both these gentlemen come from an organization of Brave FC. I saw some of the Brave FC matchups. I'm not too convinced that they are elite, but hey, we all start off somewhere. Zafar Mohsen, he looked like a little bulky Hulk at that weight class with explosive strikes, but again, not clean strikes. We're talking about your typical throw a power hit and then move, then throw a power hit and move with no setup, loses his balance, so he has to reset every time he trades. He did seem a bit aggressive, which could be a problem for a lot of fighters, but again, definitely doesn't set anything up. As for Husein, Kadimagomaev, he's the polar opposite. Very thin for that weight class. Not to say that that's a bad thing, but just even body structure, completely the opposite. Very thin, a little more methodical with his striking, his 1-2s. He sets it up, he uses his jab, and is pretty much more of a takedown fighter. He's definitely more of a grappler wrestler. I definitely saw a more refined, a more skilled, more technical fighter in Husein, which I think is going to be the story of this fight. Takedown and, you know, initiate a scramble. And I just don't think Mohsen has the tools, besides being explosive and strong, to be able to put up with this pace, to be able to put up with the tools and skills that Husein is going to bring. I definitely see Husein being able to control the striking comfortably to taking down Mohsen. It might be a struggle, it might be a little difficult at first, but if he takes him down, which I think he will be able to, he's going to be able to control Mohsen. Husein by unanimous decision. Third bout of the main card, we go to the middleweight division. A fight between, it's a rematch between Johnny Eblen versus Fabian Edwards. Let's get history out of the way first. Johnny Eblen and Fabian Edwards have already fought in what was a huge buildup. And when the fight happened, I actually saw Fabian Edwards kind of piecing Johnny Eblen apart. Until the early second round came in, Johnny Eblen put his lights out. I'm not going to say that it was a lucky shot, but I think it's something that will only happen twice every 10 fights. Johnny Eblen just has a way of winning. He's very flat-footed, and even his takedowns, I mean, I don't see him being this very fancy, very tricky takedown artist, but he's just relentless. And when he gets you down, he just pounds you out. He works on you, he makes you work, he tires you, and just puts a beating on you. I must emphasize though, he's one of those fighters that, even though he's the champ and he has wins over Edwards and Kasangane and Musasi, I'm just not impressed with him. Now Fabian Edwards, being the little brother of Leon Edwards, UFC's previous welterweight champion, very similar, has wins over Machida. He looks good. In my opinion, Fabian Edwards is a good fighter, just fell short on the Johnny Eblen fight. But very similar styles, 1-2 attacks, never throws really a lot of volume or huge combinations, snappy, fast head kicks. Again, very much like his brother Leon Edwards. This is one of those matchups where I easily see Fabian Edwards winning. He's lighter on his feet, he's faster on his feet, he's faster with his combinations. If he can sprawl and brawl, this should be an easy fight for him. But Johnny Eblen, man, this guy just keeps coming and coming. Take Johnny Eblen's last fight, for example, Kasangane. I'm safely assuming here that Kasangane is a more explosive, heavier-handed fighter than Fabian Edwards, and Johnny Eblen was still able to do Johnny Eblen things to Kasangane. Johnny's gonna take him down, he's gonna push the pace, he's gonna take him down and work that guy. Johnny Eblen by decision. Going on to the next fight, we have a women's featherweight championship. Larissa Pacheco versus Cris Cyborg. Cris Cyborg finally returns to MMA, finally returns to the PFL after having a little bit of drama, once again victimizing herself, a repeating pattern in her career, a video that I already made about her, but she's finally here. During her MMA hiatus, for whatever reason it might be, she was boxing. As an athlete, I respect her a lot and appreciate her work. But I had the privilege and honor of going to one of those boxing events Seeing her get a knockout, still looking powerful, still looking fast, still looking like Cyborg. She's not aging at all. And got to take a family picture with her. On a side note, what I will say about Cyborg is this. Being there live at one of her events, being up close to her, she's so good to her fans. And I appreciate and love her for that. She's probably the best one I've ever came across in person that is the best to her fans. Larissa Pacheco, I believe, is going on a 1-year absence from competition. Formerly in the UFC, about 10 years ago, with losses to the likes of Germaine Durandamy, she's gone in I would say more of a tear outside of the UFC, and has definitely built up her career being outside of the UFC. Is the boogeyman of the division, and has been the boogeyman, or in this case boogie woman, for years. I would actually categorize her amongst the likes of Cris Cyborg and Amanda Nunes. These females that are flat-footed and just slowly march forward, are not afraid of the takedown. They just come forward and they throw to knock you out every single time. An incredible style that's very similar to each other. They're gonna both walk forward, they're gonna trade. It's gonna get ugly quick, and that's good for us, the fans. The only difference between the two is that Larissa Pacheco, although she hasn't been active for about a year, has had quite a handful of fights that go 5 rounds. I have a feeling that if it drags out into the 2nd, 3rd round, Larissa Pacheco's gonna start taking off. I feel like her cardio's been tested more than Cyborg. There's a chance we could see Larissa Pacheco TKO Cyborg rounds 3, 4, or 5. However, I don't think that's gonna be the case. Again, 2 women that slowly march forward, flat-footed, ready to throw heavy, never backs down. This fight's gonna go down. It's gonna end in the 1st or 2nd round, TKO, KO, and I feel like it's gonna be Cyborg standing, looking down at Pacheco. For our main event, a very highly anticipated return and matchup at the heavyweight division. We have Francis Ngannou finally coming back against Renan Ferreira. Personally, Francis Ngannou is an extremely fun fighter, but I think he's a very sloppy fighter, a fighter that lacks a lot of technique. Definitely I see the improvement, but I still see a very sloppy powerhouse of a striker. Although Francis Ngannou gets a lot of praise for his improved wrestling and takedown defense, here's what people won't tell you. Let's start off with this takedown defense against Stipe Miocic. Sure, he was able to stuff the takedowns, but we're talking about a Stipe Miocic that fought very scared. Am I the only one seeing this? It seemed like Stipe was already mentally defeated. Who knows if that's true? But he was shooting from a mile away without setting up any shots. You're gonna be able to stuff these takedowns over and over and over again. And I feel that was the case with the Miocic fight. So is it truly really improved takedown defense? Or Stipe Miocic was just being sloppy? Nevertheless, a win is a win. And he was able to deliver an incredible knockout highlight reel over what's considered one of the best heavyweights of all time. Then he doubled that up. He went up against Ngannou, defended his belt, and what this fight showed me is his IQ. That Ngannou's not stupid. That if he knows, hey, maybe your reach is too much for me to get to you, if I can't really figure you out, I'm gonna take you down, and I can. I'm able to do that. I'm able to adjust now. It's been pretty neat watching Renan Ferreira win the 2023 PFL $1 million tournament. It has been amazing watching him in that super fight pay-per-view back in February against Ryan Bader, and being the only one that pulled it off for PFL, because otherwise they would have gone with an O on that against Bellator. From what I've seen, of Renan Ferreira. I've seen him get taken down by Goltsov, which I think is an incredible heavyweight, and overcome that. Come back and get a knockout. I've seen him pretty much in every position, and I feel like Renan Ferreira is a legit heavyweight champion. What a lot of us are questioning, what a lot of us are thinking about when it comes down to Francis Ngannou, where he says he's ready. Personally, I don't think he is. Even though he had a great performance against Tyson Fury in the boxing world, and then he went up against Anthony Joshua and he got brutally knocked out. And history tells us, more likely than not, when you get knocked out like that, it's a career changer. And just as you thought it couldn't get worse for Francis, unfortunately, his son Kobe passes away. Back-to-back losses in his profession, one including a crazy, brutal knockout loss. And then probably the biggest loss of his life, a family member, a child of your own. Is this guy really there anymore? I don't think he's ready to come back. And his mistake is he decided to come back against Renan Ferreira. I really think this is one of those scenarios, and as cliche and typical people say this, I think this perfectly applies to Francis Ngannou. His back is up against the wall here, where he cannot afford to get knocked the fuck out again. And I think that's exactly what's gonna happen. Yeah, I think this fight does not go past the second round, and I think it's gonna be Renan Ferreira with a knockout, a vicious knockout victory over Francis Ngannou.